CGTN, China Global Television Network. Live from London, this is The World Today.
Hello, I'm Jamie Owen. Welcome to the program. Our top stories. For the first time in its history, the United States House of Representatives has ousted its leader, plunging Congress into further chaos. Our other headlines: one person is killed in a Russian missile strike on Ukraine just as President Zelensky visits the region to call for further security. Italian police investigate whether a bus driver may have fallen ill at the wheel, causing the crash near Venice that killed 21 people. And Pakistan faces criticism, including from the Taliban, over its plan to expel more than 1.7 million Afghan nationals. For the first time in its history, the United States House of Representatives has ousted its leader, plunging Congress into further chaos, just days after it narrowly averted a government shutdown.
The office of Speaker of the House of the United States House of Representatives is hereby declared vacant.
Louisiana,
The Republican-controlled House voted to remove its Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, in an unprecedented move driven by a small group of hardliners within its own party. This comes after McCarthy chose to avoid a federal shutdown by striking a last-minute deal with Senate Democrats to fund government agencies.
The right thing isn't always easy, but it is necessary. I don't regret standing up for choosing governance over grievance. It is my responsibility. It is my job. I do not regret negotiating. Our government is designed to find compromise. I don't regret my efforts to build coalitions and find solutions. I was raised to solve problems, not create them. So I may have lost a vote today, but as I walk out of this chamber, I feel fortunate to have served the American people.
Let's talk to our correspondent, John Terrett in New York. John, you've reported on the United States for years. I mean, this is extraordinary, historic stuff, isn't it?
Any quick questions?
Yeah. You know, the stock market's not reacting very much, but I'll tell you why. That's because the stock market is worried about policies rather than personalities, okay? But yeah, this is history in the making. Mouths were open agog yesterday when this actually happened and the vote went through, although we thought it was going to happen. But nonetheless, it doesn't take away any of the seriousness of this event. Never in the country's more than 200-year history has a speaker ever been removed. Never mind removed by members of his own party. And I would remind our viewers around the world that the Speaker of the House is the third most significant politician in the country, because were anything to happen to the President and the Vice President, obviously nobody wishes that, but were it to happen, then it is the Speaker of the House who becomes the President of the United States on an interim basis and potentially for longest. It's a very, very key position, and Kevin McCarthy will carry the name Speaker with him now for the rest of his life. He was ousted by rebellious Republicans and Democrats on the floor of the House yesterday. 8 Republicans in total, unhappy that he did a deal to keep the government open at the weekend with Democrats. Now, McCarthy has done this twice in his short tenure as the Speaker of the House. Back in June, he did a deal with Joe Biden to stop the government from running out of money and kicking that can down the road, in theory, for 2 years. And then at the weekend, he did do that deal with the Democrats in order to keep the government going. And that is the thing that's really irked the Republicans on the right of his party. There's a group of about 40 of them, and there were 8 that rebelled against him yesterday to kick him out. Democrats not happy with him either. They didn't step in to save him because he made anti-Democrat remarks in the CBS television program Face the Nation on Sunday. Now we have an interim speaker. He's called Pat McHenry. He comes from North Carolina, but he can't do very much over the course of the next week, not really. And the legislative program in the House of Representatives is effectively frozen until a new permanent speaker can be found. Jamie?
John, so for those not familiar with the process of how the business works there, what happens next?
Well, if I'm honest with you, nobody quite knows, because we are literally in uncharted territory. We've never been here before. Now, Pat McHenry, as I said, from North Carolina, has taken on the job as the Speaker for the time being, but he can't really do very much until somebody is appointed full-time, and it's not clear whether he actually wants the job full-time. He's very much more partisan than Kevin McCarthy was. He gets on with Democrats and Republicans of all stripes in the House, but it's not clear to anybody whether he wants it. In the meantime, amazingly, the list of people who would like to be Speaker appears to be growing, and I wouldn't rule out Kevin McCarthy. Don't rule out Kevin McCarthy just yet. He has said he won't run. I know he has, but it's very possible that he will come back as this program progresses. What they're going to do is have a meeting next Tuesday, and then probably a vote next Wednesday. Whoever it is will need to get to 218 votes, and that's quite a lot. And in the meantime, the White House is concerned about Ukraine, because you'll remember one of the big issues at the weekend was government spending. There are a lot of politicians in the House, especially on the right, who don't want to see any more money going to Ukraine to combat the special operation by Russia in the Ukraine. And this was to have been a major topic that they took up this week, and now they won't be able to get it on the table at the earliest until the middle of next week. Jamie?
John, thank you for that. Our correspondent John Terrett in New York. At least one person has been killed in a Russian airstrike on the Ukrainian city of Kherson. The attack in a residential suburb on Tuesday destroyed several homes. President Zelensky, on a trip to eastern Ukraine, says security in the region is extremely important for Europe. He also discussed the threat of possible Russian airstrikes on Ukrainian energy infrastructure ahead of winter. Well, Russia's defense ministry says it has shot down 31 drones over its border regions. On social media, officials claimed Belgorod, Bryansk and Kursk came under fire in what it described as terrorist attacks by Ukraine. Let's talk to our correspondent Dasha Chernyshova, watching events for us in Moscow. What more do we know about these claims by the Ministry of Defense?
Well, indeed, the Russian Ministry of Defense says Ukraine has once again attempted to start the terrorist attacks, as Moscow describes them, against the Russian bordering regions of Kursk, Bryansk and Belgorod. 31 drones have been intercepted by the Russian air defense systems. We do know that in Belgorod region, local authorities say that an administrative building as well as a household and several cars were damaged by the falling debris. We also have heard the officials in the Bryansk region saying that a village there has come under the attack by the Ukrainian armed forces that involved cluster munitions. At least 50 households, local officials say, have been damaged as a result. And separately, we've heard that there was an attempted landing by the Ukrainian group of military who have tried to land close to Cape Tarkankut in the Crimean Peninsula. We understand that they were using jet ski, and the Russian air defense forces have managed to repel that attack as well, not allowing the landing on the Crimean Peninsula. In the meantime, Russia's Ministry of Emergency Situations has held a nationwide testing of the public awareness, the public warning sirens in the Russian regions. We understand that they have been switching on those blaring sounds across the country's regions and warning the residents to stay calm. It is coming, obviously, as the routine thing in accordance with the Russian legislation to test how the people who are responsible for switching on those sirens are working and how the people are reacting and how the systems that are involved in that are operating. But obviously it is happening against the backdrop of the so-called special military operation in Ukraine, and it cannot but disturb the Russian nationals when they hear those sounds.
Dasha, thank you for that. Our correspondent Dasha Chernyshova in Moscow. A Russian journalist who protested on television against the country's war in Ukraine has received a jail term in her absence. Irina Ovsenikova has been sentenced to 8.5 years by a court in Moscow. She was charged after holding up a placard denouncing the invasion during a live news bulletin in March last year. She's since fled Russia for exile in Europe and called the charges against her absurd and politically motivated. Italian police are investigating whether a bus driver may have fallen ill at the wheel, causing a crash near Venice that killed 21 people. The bus was carrying tourists returning from a day trip to the city. Our correspondent Giles Gibson is in Rome. Giles, obviously the investigation in its earliest days, but what more do we know?
Well, Jamie, there is real shock here in Italy just about the nature of this tragic incident. The front page of La Repubblica, one of the biggest newspapers in this country, simply saying the headline, Pullman della Morte, which translates as bus or coach of death. And I think part of that shock is down to the fact that, as you were describing, this was a bus full of tourists who'd just been taking in the beauty and the sights of Venice and then were heading back to their campsite on what should have been, the evening of their holiday, which of course took such a tragic turn. And I think the other reason why there is so much shock here in Italy is because there were lots of younger people on board this bus, and indeed young people amongst the victims and amongst those who've been injured. Just to give you one tragic case, there are these two German brothers aged just 7 and 13 years old. They are currently receiving treatment in hospital for broken bones as a result of this incident, and they have lost both of their parents.
And what are the investigators looking at to try to piece together what happened?
Well, the initial focus of the investigation is on the driver himself. He was a 40-year-old Italian man who sadly died in this incident as well. The regional president of the region of Veneto has said that everything points to some sort of illness for the driver, so some sort of medical emergency. And we've heard a similar theory being put forward by the head of the company that was operating this bus. There is also this security camera footage. It's a little bit difficult to see the initial stages of the bus's movements, but what we can see is that the bus was moving down a straight section of road, so it wasn't on a tight turn or anything like that. It was dry weather, so there wasn't any rain or anything affecting the surface, and it appears that the bus was moving at a pretty slow speed before it sort of somehow just tips over the edge of that overpass and then fell more than 10 meters. That's what we're hearing in Italian media. So, look, the investigation still in its early stages, but the focus for now is on that theory that the bus driver could have suffered some sort of medical emergency.
Giles, thank you for that. Our correspondent Giles Gibson in Rome. You're watching CGTN. Still ahead, one of Europe's biggest infrastructure projects. Now it's the end of the line for the UK's flagship high-speed railway. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak says it no longer makes economic sense.
Ever wondered what's the difference between a bear and a bull market? Where are the cash cows? And who are the lame ducks? And what exactly are black swans? Grey rhinos? And unicorn companies? Make sense of it all with global business, only on CGTN.
I think it should be more global cooperation.
I would like to hear more the voice of the developing countries.
Globalization has lifted more than 1 billion people out of poverty.
The green transition has to happen. It's a necessity.
For China and the United States are important powers in the world.
What unites us is much more than what divides us.
And I believe China is committed to this agenda.
Join me, Juliet Mann, to set the agenda at these times every weekend on CGTN.
Events have consequences. Words create impact.
One more offensive in a long line of battles that's been ongoing for more.
Just got to be careful here with some gunshots. Excuse us.
The world today matters for your world tomorrow.
The number of casualties is growing quickly.
Why, this is one of the hardest hit towns in the region.
The world today, every day on CGTN.
Hello, welcome back. A reminder of our top stories. For the first time in its history, the United States House of Representatives has ousted its leader, plunging Congress into further chaos. Our other headlines: one person killed in a Russian missile strike on eastern Ukraine just as President Zelensky visits the region to call for further security. And Italian police investigate whether a bus driver may have fallen ill at the wheel, causing the crash near Venice that killed 21 people. The Taliban has criticised a plan by Pakistan to expel over 1.7 million Afghan nationals, calling it unacceptable. They've been told to leave the country by November as part of a broader crackdown on illegal migration. Pakistan's government has blamed Afghan nationals for several suicide bombings in the country this year. Our correspondent Daniel Khan is in Islamabad. Daniel, what did Pakistan's government say about this decision?
Well, Jamie, the government of Pakistan has announced November the 1st deadline for illegal immigrants to leave Pakistan. According to some government officials, law enforcement agencies will deport illegal immigrants if they do not leave voluntarily. A meeting of the Apex Committee on the National Action Plan was held with the top officials in attendance. The deadline also applies to entry into Pakistan without a passport or visa. DNA testing will be used to detect individuals with fraudulent Pakistani identity cards. A universal helpline and a web portal for reporting illegal activities will be launched. The crackdown will also target illegal property, businesses, identity cards and passports. The government now aims to curb smuggling, holding illicit money transfers and power theft. The announcement follows a crackdown on Afghan refugees in response to illegal immigration and rising crime. Now, the Interior Minister for Pakistan has also spoken about suicide attacks and attacks by Afghan nationals, calling for international cooperation on counter-terrorism efforts.
Yes. What's been the reaction in Pakistan to this migrant crackdown?
Yes, the Afghan embassy in Islamabad has accused Pakistani police of a ruthless operation against Afghan refugees. Amnesty International has criticized Pakistan for creating a climate of fear for the refugees. There are local concerns here that have risen about the impact on the Hazara community, women and children. Activists and United Nations officials have emphasized the importance of voluntary refugee return. Though the world has acknowledged Pakistan's role in resettling Afghan refugees, the UNHCR has opposed the deadline, emphasizing the need for voluntary returns and protection for those seeking safety.
Daniel, thank you for that. Our correspondent Daniel Khan in Islamabad. Now, it was one of Europe's biggest infrastructure projects, but UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has confirmed part of a new high-speed railway link will be scrapped. After weeks of speculation, the second phase of HS2, which was due to run between Birmingham and Manchester, will no longer go ahead. Sunak made his announcement at his first Conservative Party conference as Prime Minister. He said the project had overrun on costs and no longer makes economic sense.
In its place, we will reinvest every single penny, £36 billion, in hundreds of new transport projects in the North and the Midlands across the country. This means £36 billion of investment in the projects that will make a real difference across our nation.
Activists have gathered in Rome to demand a greater role for women in the Roman Catholic Church just hours before the Pope opens a meeting of bishops at the Vatican. For the first time, women will be allowed to vote at the three-week gathering as the Church maps out a path for the future and addresses issues such as its attitudes towards LGBT people. The meeting, known as the Synod, is likely to again expose deep divisions between progressives and conservatives within Catholicism. There have been heavy downpours along Australia's east coast just a day after the region was threatened by bushfires. Widespread rain has triggered flood warnings but also helped to dampen the flames. Bushfires have taken hold across an area of more than 5,000 hectares, destroying 3 homes. 23 Indian soldiers are missing after a powerful flash flood in the country's northeast. Water was released from a dam following sudden downpours, causing the rivers to surge. Several vehicles are thought to be buried in mud or underwater. The army says a search for the missing is being hampered by rain. More than 100 pink dolphins have been discovered dead in a lake in the Brazilian Amazon. Drought and record-breaking water temperatures are thought to be the cause. Naturalists are attempting to save the remaining dolphins, but the operation is proving difficult due to the remoteness of the location. And I should say you might find some of the images in Paulo Cabral's report upsetting.
These are Amazon river dolphins, the boto, beloved and graceful aquatic mammals entwined in regional folklore, even utilized in boto therapy sessions for kids with special needs, featured in a CGTN story a few years ago. However, this week these creatures made headlines for a much sadder reason, a sudden spike in mortality.
So far, we have had a minimum count of 120 carcasses, including pink dolphins and tucuxis, with the majority, around 80%, being pink dolphins.
The dead dolphins were discovered in Lake Tefé amid the worst drought ever recorded in the region, which has reduced water levels and increased water temperatures. On the day the first carcasses were found, researchers say the water was nearly 39 degrees Celsius, more than 10 degrees above the usual temperature for this time of year.
Our investigations have not ceased. We are conducting a series of analyses on water quality and the deceased animals to understand the true causes of these deaths. That's why the Mamirawara Institute, along with several partner institutions like ICMBio and others, is here trying to address this disaster in the region.
The Amazon river dolphin is already considered an endangered species, largely due to environmental pollution and habitat loss. Researchers fear a changing climate could provide a final, fatal blow.
There are two types of dolphins that are dying at the moment, the tucuxi and the pink dolphin. Both are considered threatened species. Their populations are severely reduced and have been declining in recent years. So this kind of event is catastrophic for these populations. Yes, it could lead to the extinction of dolphins and many other species. It's very possible.
The Amazon dolphins are dying. Understanding exactly why this is happening is the task at hand for scientists. But stopping it from happening may be a challenge for all humankind. Paulo Cabral, CGTN, São Paulo.
Tiny robots could soon be travelling around our bodies, detecting early signs of cancer and removing tumours. Developed by researchers at Leeds University in the UK, they'll be controlled externally by magnets and go deeper into the body than ever before. Following laboratory trials, the team is now focusing on bringing the technology into hospitals. Our correspondent Alex Izat reports.
Navigating its way through the twists and turns of a bronchial tube, this tiny tentacle could soon transform how doctors discover and treat lung cancer. Guided by magnets outside the body, the tentacle has both a camera and a laser. Smaller and less invasive than standard equipment, it can travel 37% deeper, allowing clinicians to detect and easily remove tumours. Developed at the Storm Lab at Leeds University, the team has been working with scientists and doctors to drive the project forward and perfect it.
Our goal is to go as deep as possible inside the human body with non-invasive techniques to diagnose and treat disease like cancer. They can get tissue samples that can be sent to a lab for further analysis. And in terms of treatment, they can deliver energy, drop drugs for localized drug therapy.
Magnets play a huge part in the success of the project. Made of silicone with magnetic microparticles, the robots are assigned north and south poles, allowing the team to control each end, bending and moving the tentacles to where they need to be.
We also have sensors inside the robot that tell us how the field is at the position of the robot, and using this feedback we try to have intelligent motion. And so eventually also like autonomous navigation, so that the robot can perform the procedure on its own, with of course always doctor supervision, but not an active participation from the doctor.
Each journey into the body will be tailor-made for the patient. The magnetic tentacles will be pre-programmed, so they'll be able to be guided autonomously to wherever needs to be investigated or treated.
All our tentacles are patient-specific and customized. So what we do is that we perform a CT scan and we extract a pathway that we are going to navigate through with our tentacles. And then we have a special algorithm that extracts those magnetic profiles, as we call them, so that we can magnetize the catheters in a specific way. This is all pre-planned before surgery, so we are pre-programming the design and the magnetic profile of the catheter, and in the same time we're also pre-programming the motion of the robots as well.
At 80 millimetres in length and 2 millimetres in diameter, the robots are small enough to reach where they need to. But with further testing, the tentacles may evolve and become smaller still.
There's plenty of iterations to go through. We always are trying to make things more miniaturized, more smaller. We're trying to functionalize tentacle robots with tools like lasers or grippers in order to give surgeons more options to help patients.
It may be a few years until the magnetic robot tentacles are available in hospitals, but the findings show that the technology could be used for other diagnostic procedures, which could allow clinicians to reach some of the smallest anatomical spaces. Alex Izat, CGTN, Leeds.
And finally, Rio de Janeiro's iconic Christ the Redeemer statue has turned pink to mark Breast Cancer Awareness Month. The monument, which looks out over the city, was bathed in light as breast cancer patients and campaigners gathered to watch. Organisers want to raise awareness of the disease and encourage women to get annual mammograms. The headlines again. For the first time in its history, the United States House of Representatives has ousted its leader, plunging Congress into further chaos. That is the world today. Thank you for watching. There's more news on CGTN Europe's channel on the Telegram app, or scan the QR code on the screen to get stories and updates sent direct to your phone. We're back with more news at the top of this hour. Coming up next, it's World Insight. For now, from all of the team in London, it's goodbye.
Hello and welcome to Europe's weather forecast. Starting with the wet weather conditions on Thursday, you could anticipate rainfall or a chance of winter precipitation across much of the northern portion, stretching all the way to majority of northwestern Russia. And then moving to Friday, you could see the rainy areas pushing eastward a little bit. There could be lowering chances for much of Finland. On the contrary, showers developing in northern Germany and parts of Poland. On the contrary, you could anticipate cloudy conditions or clear sky for much of the south all the way to the west. Well, temperature-wise, those blue shaded areas indicate dropping temperatures. Behind it, warming temperatures are in the forecast. Then, as we look into Friday, you could also anticipate warming temperatures in much of northern portions, stretching all the way down to parts of the Balkans. Well, take a closer look at a city forecast on Friday. You could have light rain in Copenhagen, Stockholm, see 10 to 3 only for folks in Helsinki, light rain turning to moderate rainfall. 12 for the maximum temperatures in Minsk and Moscow. Notice here, the minimum temperature will be just 2, cold enough to change light rain into a chance of winter precipitation. That's it for now. Stay tuned for more city forecast.